The DickHeads are presented in color.
Hey, dickheads! Or maybe you're not a dickhead. I'm David Agronoff, co-host of the DickHeads Podcast. I'm doing 6 books to start your Philip K. Dick journey. This is my picks for the first 6 books you should read on your journey. Now, if you're wanting to dive into the writing and the work of Philip K. Dick, these are what I consider to be the 6 places to start. Now, the other hosts of the show would have totally different picks, and they might do their videos eventually, but this is my 6 choices for where to start your Philip K. Dick journey.
Number 1.
So let's say you're wanting to read Philip K. Dick, and you've never read any Philip K. Dick before, and you want to know where to start. Well, my personal opinion is with the 1977 science fiction masterpiece, A Scanner Darkly. Now, A Scanner Darkly is Phil's best novel, in my opinion. It's his best written novel. It's his best conceived. And it is funny. It is weird. It is a masterclass in paranoid writing. And it's scary at times. And it just works on all kinds of levels. It is an anti-drug novel inspired by Phil's own substance abuse. So it's a deeply personal novel. It's really, really good. It takes place in the far-off future of 1994. It's really his best work on a lot of levels.
Number 2.
So the second book that I think you should read in your Philip K. Dick journey, and that is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So this is the 1968 novel. It was written in 1966, published in 68. It is very forward-thinking. It has lots of stuff in there about technology and philosophy and how technology is dehumanizing us. So you get a lot of very forward-thinking things that kind of predict our world in the empathy boxes and the different things with technology. And yes, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, like, isn't that the one about the killer androids and stuff? And yeah, that storyline is there. Rick Deckard is there and that whole storyline, but there's a lot more philosophical levels going on to the novel. And so there's a lot of deeper stuff going on. It's much weirder than Blade Runner, and it's a little bit more surreal. Like, keep in mind in the beginning, in this world, it's a cli-fi novel too. Animals are extinct, and the reason why they start developing these fake android life forms is because, for example, like people, there's that kind of keeping up with the Joneses thing involved with people wanting to have animals to show status. I highly recommend it because it kind of shows it's much weirder science fiction, and it shows everything that Phil can do. And, you kind of have this movie to help you kind of get on the wavelength with it.
Number 3.
So for number 3 is the collected stories of Philip K. Dick. Now, I chose volume 2. But I think any of the volumes are worthwhile, but especially volumes 1 and 2, which contain stories from the early 50s. And this was Phil's most prolific period of writing short stories, and he was writing for the pulps. He was living with his second wife, Cleo, in Berkeley. This is 1126 Francisco Street. And this is a house you've been in before.
I talked my way in here. Yeah, Dick lived here in the 50s with Cleo Apostolides at the time. And they shared this. This is where Dick came into his own as a writer. He would have written, we figured
everything from Gather Yourselves Here through at least we know Time Out of Joint was written here. And was just pumping out these short stories like crazy. Now, the reason why I would choose volume 2 in part is because it has the story We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which inspired Total Recall. But it also, volume 2 also has Some great stories such as the Hoodmaker, Human Is, Adjustment Team, The Impossible Planet, Imposter, Souvenir, Survey Team, Martians Come in Clouds. I mean, there's some really, really, really great stuff. This is a really great place to introduce yourself to the short fiction.
Number 4.
Okay, so now maybe we want to do something a little bit weirder. And one of the best, in my opinion, is Galactic Pot Healer. Galactic Pot Healer was written at the end of 1967. It came out in 1969. And this is a shorter Philip K. Dick novel. It's only 180 pages. This is a hilarious, very, very funny, strange science fiction novel that takes place on this alien world, and there's this creature known as the Glumming, Gilmung, Glumming, who looks like a big flaming wheel and lives under the ocean of this alien world. And there's a sunken cathedral, and he wants it to be raised. Like, the plot doesn't sound great, but let me tell you, this is a very, very funny book, and there's some really cool elements with one of the things Phil likes to do is have working class characters who have really silly jobs, and our main character is he fixes pots, and he's given this job to come help raise this cathedral because they think that he might be able to help fix it. There's a really great scene where he argues with his bed because he is weighing too much and the bed doesn't like that. Yes, so there's some really funny and weird technology. Yeah, the bed monitors his sleep, and so he has an AI bed, and it's a very, very funny scene. And Galactic Pot Healer is short and very funny, and so I think that should be your 4th Philip K. Dick read.
Number 5.
And number 5, I'm going to go with another classic, The Man in the High Castle. And The Man in the High Castle was the only time that Phil won the Hugo Award. He won the Hugo Award for this novel. And now this is one that the other members of the DickHeads were not as into as I was. Man in the High Castle is not about, ooh, look, scary Nazis, like people think it is. It is a story about how history is bullshit and how, history is taught by the victors. And there's this whole kind of thing about this false reality. And it's less about like, presenting this scary world where the Nazis and the Japanese won, as much as a book about the fabric of reality and how history is taught and how things are passed down in books. The thing that you really want to look for in Man in the High Castle is what it's saying about the fabric of reality. And it is a fantastic book, and it is one of Phil's best, written in a period where he had a pretty happy home life, and it was, his first reader at the time was his wife, Ann Dick, and a lot of his best work happened during those early years of the marriage with Ann Dick. So, yeah, Man in the High Castle.
Number 6.
Well, and now we've gotten to the number 6 one that I think you should read, because it, to me, is Phil's absolute masterpiece, and that is the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldridge. This, to me, is Phil's greatest, weirdest masterpiece. It is like Scanner Darkly, an anti-drug book, but it was written at a time when he wasn't clean and was still, this was written before the drugs got really, really bad in the late 60s. This was written when he was using a lot of like basically speed to stay up all night writing books. And there was a period between November of 1963 and April of 1964 where he was moving back and forth from Marin County to back to Berkeley with his mom, and he wrote 4 or 5 novels and an outline for another novel, and it's the most prolific period that he had. And he wrote his absolute masterpiece in Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, and one of his worst books in The Crack in Space. So it was really, high highs and low lows. He also wrote The Penultimate Truth during that time, which is a really great book. And look, pretty much all of Phil's books have something worth reading them for. But the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch is horrifying. It's funny. It is weird as hell. And most people, when they read the book the first time, it won't make a lot of sense to you. It's one that took actually the third time I read it is when I got like all the levels of what's going on in there. It's very obvious once you decode this book what's happening. And we're really proud of the episode that we did on this book. And there's a lot going on in the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, and I wouldn't, as much as I think it's his best, I wouldn't recommend starting there because it is so weird. And I do think you need to get a little bit of, you got to get your Phil legs under you before you read something like this. Now, this book is firmly in the private cosmos territory. Phil had several books that are kind of set in the private cosmos thing. You have his first attempt at that was the Eye in the Sky in 1957, which is one of my absolute favorites. But again, I don't think it's a good introduction to Phil's work. But he also did that here and with Ubik and a few other books. The private cosmos thing is a big theme that he had going on there, which is like kind of an internal reality. But yeah, I think the Three Stigmata should be your number 6 read with Phil. So these to me are the first 6 you start with. Anyways, thanks for joining us on the DickHeads Podcast. I hope you have a good time starting your journey with Philip K. Dick. So keep paranoid, everybody.